Why the Brotherhood and why this trip? So I think, maybe it's something we were talking about the other day. So I think we have lots of conversations in society about toxic masculinity. I think that's important. And I think there's maybe less conversations about the other side, this tonic masculinity. What is the alternative that is being offered? We're aware of what the unhelpful and the negative is. We don't necessarily have a blueprint or a conversation even about the other side. So I think about that a lot. And I look at some of the spaces, what people call sort of men's work or men's groups. And again, I understand that they serve a function. They're speaking to men who feel isolated, feel disconnected, feel lonely. And I mean, you look at suicide rates, you look at mental health, you look at help-seeking behavior. If you're ever interested in help-seeking behavior in men, take a look at male and female GP attendance. So men aren't even going to the doctor to talk about their physical health because they're never talking about their mental health. So absolutely, I understand why these spaces exist. But personally, what I find is when I look at these spaces online, I feel like I see the same thing, and it's always these videos of shirtless men wrestling or shouting and screaming or beating their chests. And I am not convinced that is what masculinity is. That is what tonic masculinity is. I'm not convinced that's what people are actually looking for. I think people are looking for connection. They're looking for a sense of purpose and meaning. They're looking to be able to have a conversation and talk about how they feel without being judged or misunderstood or ignored. So I suppose why the Brotherhood is to try and create a space for men just to connect, to talk, to be, to not have to be anything in particular. And I think the Brotherhood is a broad and nebulous space, and a very open space for people to connect. The bit that interests me, and the bit that why I'm here, is about these sort of expeditions, adventure therapy, maybe we can call it, but the idea of doing a thing because it's difficult, doing a thing supported by other men. And we've spoken a lot about the metaphor of the mountain, right? This task we can achieve. And it's very tangible, right? You stand at the bottom and you think, wow, we've got to get up there. And then you actually get up there. You've achieved this task you set out and get a great sense of well-being. And along the way we connect, we talk, we create a space where we feel safe, feel able to communicate. So, maybe I love Toubkal. I love this mountain. I love this trip. I've done it many times. But maybe when you ask, why Toubkal? Maybe I'm thinking, it doesn't have to be Toubkal. We can go for a walk in a park, if you like, and we can achieve the same thing. If we're going to create this space where we can have conversations and support each other. So it's a tool to create connection, I think, maybe. So a very waffly answer to a simple question, but...
But it can be broad or narrow as you like. That's a good thing about that question. Is there anything that you've taken from this trip that you might be able to implement into everyday life?
Yes, very good question. It's interesting. So someone facilitating a men's group, or facilitating a men's expedition. I'm not someone who spends a lot of time with men day to day. In fact, I'd almost go to say that I avoid spending time with men. And I was talking to Naoki about it yesterday, and I was saying, the reason I spend most of my time with women, and the reason is because I want to talk about how I feel with other people who want to talk about how they feel. And I've never really found that with men, or I've assumed that men don't want to do that. And I suppose what I take away is that isn't true, actually. I think if you can really foster a space where people feel comfortable and safe and that they're not going to be judged, and you can have these, I've been having these conversations the whole way up the hill. So what would I take away? Not being so dismissive of spending time with groups of men, just on my own with men. Maybe reach out a bit more. It's the classic, right? The medicine we give is the medicine we need. I've heard this phrase so many times, but it's absolutely true, right? So I work with people all the time about connection and communication, and talking to people about reaching out and seeking support. And yet, it is the thing that I find most difficult. So, yeah, what I'll take away is doing more of that. And, you know, I'll take away loads of beautiful connections with men that I know that I can reach out to and talk to. So, yeah, I think those are the main things I'll take away.
Is there any, like, difference from hosting an event and just attending one? Does one give you more purpose? Or
yes.
What do you think about that?
That's a very good question. Yeah, it's been interesting hosting an event, attending an event. So I've only attended actually a few men's events. I've attended lots of different workshops and events and retreats for lots of different things, but purely sort of men's group events, I've only attended a few. So I maybe don't have a full range of experience. But I think there is an interesting difference in being a facilitator and an attendee simultaneously, because you do the hard thing, you climb the mountain, and you hold the space, and you look after people, make sure everyone's okay, manage the safety and the admin and things like that. So it's an interesting space to occupy. But, I think it works, and I enjoy it. And I think it's why you have sort of co-facilitation, because it creates a space where, if I actually need to just be quiet for a bit or sit and think about a thing, that Naoki can take over, or we swap round. Yeah, I think it does create an interesting dynamic, an interesting space. But I think, so again, something I was talking about yesterday is one of the things I don't necessarily like about a lot of the groups and events and ceremonies and things that I've been to is where we have some charismatic leader who is in charge and has all the wisdom that they give out to people, and they've got the answer. If only you do the right sort of breath work, and if only you do this pose, this type of yoga, or you have this many cold showers a day, and that they have to be the leader. And I'm not a big fan of that. Like, I'm more of a knowledge is for sharing, not for hoarding. So, yeah, trying to hold a position where you facilitate rather than lead, right? You help create the space rather than saying, come on, this is the way we're going, which is a tricky place to hold and a tricky thing to navigate and take some awareness to do. But I'm more interested in that, because if people leave and they're like, that Hugo, he's got all the answers, he did all that stuff, well, that's super unhelpful. Whereas if they leave and they're like, I did all this stuff, I did this myself, that's far more useful. And then they can go off and keep doing that thing. So yeah, trying to not be positioned as the leader or not be positioned as the person with all the wisdom is my preference, and something maybe I haven't achieved it, but something I try to achieve.
So in them times where if you wanted to take a breather and then Naoki takes over a little bit, would you class them as like a little bit difficult?
Yeah, maybe not so bad. Like you're just sort of letting each other know that actually, no, I need a moment to need some space, and we know each other quite well, so it's quite easy to feed off each other and switch over and things. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, the thing that sometimes I love silence. So the thing sometimes I need is just silence. So I'll take myself away, I'll do some stuff on my own. And Naoki knows this about me, and I know that Naoki sometimes needs to go, he needs to charge ahead, he needs to do the thing. And so yeah, he can go and do that, and I'll hang back. And so yeah, I think they're quite helpful, actually, quite useful, but they require some communication to make it work. And the more you know someone, the easier that is. Were
there any difficult parts for you? Or like super challenging bits, not necessarily just physical?
Yeah, I mean, the first thought was the physical, right? Because it was. I mean, the first word in my head when we did it was a brutal climb. Like, it was a brutal climb, especially towards the end. Blasting wind and the cold and fatigue, and I'm a little bit ill, as you can tell. So, yeah, physically it was brutal. In terms of what else is difficult. What else is difficult? And the second thought in my head was to talk about feeling quite emotional and quite tearful. But I don't think that was difficult, actually. It was nice. It was nice to be I've climbed this mountain many times with lots of different people. But this is the first time where I've got to the top, and I've cried. That hasn't happened before. And I've, hugged men and we've cried about being at the top of this mountain. And I don't think that was difficult. I think it was really nice. It was really nice to feel able to just do that, because it was a moment. It was a beautiful moment in the snow. So, I don't think, maybe some admin stuff. I'm a man who likes things to be on time. And so, which is tricky when you're in another country and you're working on sort of Morocco time, which is anywhere between 20 minutes to an hour. So I need to maybe relax into the pace of maybe things don't always go on time, but no, otherwise it was good.
So then beautiful moments in the snow then, right at the top.
Yes.
What makes that beautiful for you?
What makes that beautiful? Tell you, maybe the beautiful moment in the snow is one of the brothers climbing up the hill was having a really tough time. It was just a tough journey, a tough, physically demanding journey, and he's having a tough time. We're up at altitude, that's difficult as well. But he got himself to the top. He dragged himself to the top of that hill. One foot in front of the other. We got to the top of the hill. I stood next to him and I gave him a hug, and I told him that I was proud of him. And he cried, and I just held him while he cried, because because I was proud of him. It was a really difficult thing to do, and I just think that was a beautiful moment to have with another man. He's a much older man, much older than me. I think it doesn't have to be. We can have intimacy and care with other men. The thing that gets lost sometimes, right? Often for many of us, the last time we had intimacy with a man is when we were a baby and it was our father holding us or hugging us or kissing us. And then at some point those things go and they're not allowed anymore. And I think that is a shame, because, we all need that intimacy. And if we're only getting it from one source, maybe a partner, which is beautiful and lovely, can be a bit sad sometimes. So it was nice to share that moment with that brother, and I'm very grateful that I got to have that moment. So that was that will stay with me, that moment. So.
Best bits, any highlights for you?
Best
Other
bits.
Than what you've already said.
Yeah.
Most of it is just highlights.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Best bits and highlights. The first thing that comes to mind is the day before setting off from Imlil, we're doing kit check, making sure everyone's got the right gear. And one of the brothers comes to me and says, Hugo, can I wear my Crocs for the first half? I was like, no, we're climbing a mountain, which is quite fun. That'll stay with me. Can I wear my Crocs up this mountain? And what else? I quite like the energy of we got up at 1:30, as you know, to start our ascent for 2:30. I quite like the energy of that anticipation, a little bit of worry, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of excitement. Standing in the snow, 2:30, the stars look beautiful. Go and climb a mountain, that's quite a highlight. I like that. And coming back and when we arrived back at the Riad, and seeing everyone's faces when they got here, and that excitement of children, everyone was like children, running around looking at things. Because it's a nice juxtaposition, right? The harsh and terrible mountain, and a lovely Riad in Marrakesh. So, yeah, they're probably my highlights, brother.
That's everything.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Do you want to add anything?
Nothing majorly that springs to mind. About maybe one of the core themes of this expedition has been something we talked about at the very start, which was, this too shall pass. No matter how cold you get, how tired you are, how much your legs hurt, it will end. It will end. And 2 days ago we were stood in -10 on a mountain, and now we're sat in the sunshine in Marrakesh. It ended. And I think that is a useful lesson, hopefully, that a lot of the brothers will take with them, the idea that suffering ends. It doesn't cheapen suffering. It doesn't mean we should ignore it, that it doesn't matter or has value. But it reminds us that it always ends. It can help us a bit sometimes with resilience and how we cope and how we manage. It gives us hope, I think, sometimes. So, yeah, I like that. I think that came across really, just such a powerful message across the expedition. So, yeah, maybe that's my final thought, brother.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Pleasure.